Do you have a retinoid rash or retinization? If you've recently started vitamin A or a very potent retinoid, you may notice that your skin is getting red. It's getting itchy and scaly and irritated. And if you started something like tretinoin or retin A or retinoic acid in order to help get rid of acne or fine lines and wrinkles or even rosacea and pigmentation, all of a sudden you've now got this redness and it burns and it's stinging and it's peeling. Gosh, well, which is worse? Now you've got both. This can be extremely painful. And when I first went through this, I actually filmed a video called Flake Monster and was speaking about how my skin was flaking off. It was so painful, it was so upsetting, and I felt like I was trading one problem for another, but then my first problem, which was acne, wasn't even fully dealt with. I made a lot of mistakes, and since then, working alongside doctors and dermatologists, I've learned what I did wrong back then, what aesthetics school never taught me, and what people should actually do if you are experiencing a retinol rash or retinization. First off, we have to understand how retinoids work, or vitamin A. Essentially, the word retinoid is an umbrella term. Anything from retinol, retinal, or even retinoic acid is considered a retinoid. But there are different strengths within this umbrella category. For example, if you get something like retinol over the counter, it's really great, but it needs to transform itself twice in your skin to get to the bioavailable form, which is also known as retinoic acid or tretinoin. This is the prescription stuff. You can only get it as a prescription. If you do get something like retinaldehyde or retinal, it only has to transform itself once to become bioavailable. Now, what does that word mean? Let's break it down. Bio meaning life and available meaning available. So this bioavailable form means that it is life available to your cells. Your cells can take it and use it just as is, whereas a retinol that you use over the counter or a retinal needs to be transformed in order to get to that version. Now, here's the thing. Tretinoin is wonderful. It is super potent. It can do amazing things, but as we noticed, it can also cause a bit of irritation. So how do you know if this is happening? Well, if you've started a new retinoid, even adapalene or even retinol over the counter, and you notice that your skin starts to sting and burn, then if it starts to get flaky, it feels crusty, it's peeling, or even getting red and irritated, you're probably experiencing a retinol rash or retinization, especially if you're using that retinoid every single day and you're using a lot of it. Remember, the higher strength retinoids are more prone to do this, and the more frequently you use them and with larger amounts with no other products on your face, the more likely it is to cause irritation. Now, the good news is that our skin is resilient, so you can build your skin up to get your skin tolerant to the retinoid so that it doesn't burn or sting or irritate you anymore. But how do we get to that point? And in order to understand that, we have to understand exactly how retinoids work in the skin. Remember, there are different forms. The least potent is something like retinol esters and retinol, then you have retinal, and then you have tretinoin or retinoic acid. When these enter the cell, they bind to two places, the RAR and RXR receptors. These receptors are deep inside your cells, and they basically say, hey, we're gonna stimulate some epidermal growth factor. Let's break down that word. Epidermal relates to the epidermis, the top layers of our skin, and growth factor, growth to mean growing or producing more, and factor meaning something that is part of this equation. So we have upper skin cell produce more command, essentially. And that is what retinoids do. They tell the skin to build more skin and to build it back better. Now, this is great because it actually plumps up the inner layers of your skin. It actually makes them thicker, but the top layers start to slough off more, which is why you can kind of get that flaking and peeling. Now, because of this process, retinoids also make you more susceptible to the sun. You should always be using sunscreen no matter what, but especially when you're using a retinoid, you want to make sure that you're protecting your skin from the sun so that the retinoid can do its work, but at the same time, the sun literally causes issues such as fine lines, wrinkles, acne scarring, and pigmentation that a lot of retinoids are prescribed to treat for. So why would we go into the sun and undo all of the damage that the retinoids are trying to fix when we could just use our retinoids along with a sunscreen and be better off for it? Well, now think about this process. The more of the bioavailable retinoic acid that is able to get into the cell, the more it's able to bind and create that epidermal growth factor and essentially create this new process of building skin cells. So if there's a way to slow down that entrance to the cell or to make it a little bit more tolerable, that is going to help overall. And there are some ways to do this. The first and most simple is to back off. If you're using a brand new prescription retinoid twice a day, back it up like a Tonka truck and start to titrate. Titrate essentially means to increase things gradually. So instead of using a retinoid twice a day, try doing it once a day, maybe once or twice a week. After 2 to 3 weeks of that, you can go to 3 times a week and graduate up. Of course, if you are using a prescription retinoid, make sure that you talk to your dermatologist or your dermatology care provider and ask what's right there. But if you are using products that are over the counter and you're still getting that irritation, you can again still ask a dermatologist or a doctor or an expert, or you can titrate on your own. Now, another option is to buffer your retinoid or to sandwich your retinoid. Think of what the word buffer means. It's kind of like a cushion, right? Something that kind of blocks or stands in between. Well, there are many things that you can use to buffer retinoids that a lot of experts speak about. And the first one is Vaseline or petrolatum jelly. I like this one. It's the Solimo petrolatum jelly. It's cheap. It's from Amazon. It's vegan and cruelty free, unlike regular Vaseline. This is greasy. This is groupy. And a lot of experts recommend it, especially for people who have like eczema or psoriasis and dry, irritated skin. And if you're struggling with dryness and redness and irritation from a retinoid, heck, you could use this. Now, you can put your retinoid underneath this and put this on top. That's going to be a bit more intense. If you put this on first and then put on your retinoid, it's going to penetrate, but much more slowly. And this is a much more gentle way to increase your skin's tolerance of this vitamin A or this retinoid. Another option that I really love is this from Versed. This is actually an eye cream. This is the Smooth Landing Advanced Retinoid Eye Cream, and this is retinol with an O in kind of like a Vaseline-like texture. It's kind of like a balm. Now, even though this is an eye cream, I use it all over my entire face, and I really love this because it kind of gives you that buffer of the Vaseline, but because this is retinol, not retinoic acid, it actually takes 2 steps of conversion to get into the skin. And that's another way that you can increase your tolerance and help to decrease any sensitivity, is using a lower strength retinoid first. For example, let's say that you didn't get a prescription for tretinoin, or you did and it's just too much. You can start with something less intense over the counter. The most potent thing that you can get over the counter that is not prescription is something like retinaldehyde. This is one from Medicate, the Cristal Retinol 3. If you have fine lines and wrinkles, this is one of the best. But if you want something even a step down from that, again, this Versed Eye Balm. This is really, really great because this retinol takes 2 steps to convert, and it already has this buffer inside of it. And when you think about it, if we're taking more steps of conversion to get into the cell, it's going to happen slower and it's going to happen more gently. So you're still getting those benefits, but they're not like wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, and peel off your skin. Now, the good news is that there are different blends as well. For instance, if you don't want something that has this Vaseline-y, laminated skin-like texture, there are moisturizers that combine retinol along with other ingredients. This one is one that I love from Beauty Pie. It's retinol and vitamin C. Just be aware that Beauty Pie is really expensive if you don't have the membership. If you have like the Costco membership, this is very inexpensive and very affordable. Beauty Pie products are made in the same laboratories as luxury manufacturers, but they take out all of the fancy, elaborate celebrity marketing. They take out all of the fancy, overpriced, La Mer stories and bullshit and just give it to you as is, which I love. And then another option you can always go for is a retinol in oil. This is one from The Ordinary that I love. It's retinol in squalane, so this mimics what your skin creates naturally. And especially if you are struggling with dryness, the oil in here can really help to soothe over the skin. And remember that retinoids are basically vitamin A, and vitamin A, just like vitamins D, E, and K, are oil soluble, meaning that retinoids absolutely love oil formulas. If you are struggling with acne, this is a great one. This is a retinol clearing oil from Dermalogica. This also has salicylic acid, so it's really made for acne. This specific formula has retinol propionate, so this is excellent for acne, especially with that salicylic acid. And then if you are interested and have it available in your country, something like adapalene gel is wonderful. This is from Acne Free. I love this. Adapalene gel is basically a synthetic version of a retinoid. It's a 3rd generation retinoid, and it's made for acne, but to be less irritating and to be a little bit more photostable, so light stable, meaning this is better to use during the day than something like your straight up tretinoin. This is also wonderful. It can still cause retinization, but depending on what does or doesn't work for your skin, this gel might be really helpful. And even though it's been tested and studied in acne prone people, there is reason to believe that it works similarly on fine lines and wrinkles and scars and hyperpigmentation and rosacea, just the way that tretinoin does. Now, you can also find encapsulated retinol. This is a really great option, and anything encapsulated is wonderful because it's slow release. If you think about a capsule and you have to break through that capsule or open that capsule in order to get to the thing, if you have a time-released formula, it's not bam, everything on your face all at once. It's a slow release over time. And this is another really great way to slowly get things into the skin, into the cell, and therefore gently ease it onto the skin. If you're not interested in using something like Vaseline or petrolatum jelly or these thick laminated skin slugging type of products, you can also use other moisturizers, but I would recommend moisturizers that are hydrating and that don't have fragrances or a lot of additives. This is an excellent product from Bubble. This is their overnight sleep mask, but be aware that this does have different acids in it, such as kojic and mandelic, so only use this if your skin is pretty resilient and you're just trying to buffer a retinoid. If you really want something great, this is from Mediture. This is fantastic. This is the PSL moisturizer, and this is built with literal ceramides, literal fatty acids, and cholesterol that your skin naturally produces to help strengthen a skin barrier. It's fragrance-free, and their entire line is built on restoring and replenishing, and this is wonderful and lightweight if you want to buffer a retinoid and actually rebuild your skin barrier. So even if you're taking a break from your retinoid and you want to use this on your off retinoid days while you're titrating, this one is excellent. Rub-a-dub-a-dub, my skin cells in a bathtub. Technically, my skin cells are in a bathtub, but... So if you're struggling with a retinol rash, you now know what it looks like, what causes it, how retinoids work in the skin, and what you can do. To summarize, slow down, Speedy Gonzalez, titrate or ask your doctor or dermatologist if you can take things slow, buffer by using other products, and then remove anything that's irritating, such as fragrances or other additives. Now, if you are pregnant or breastfeeding, you shouldn't be using retinoids, but you may be able to use things like azelaic acid, and we actually have videos on pregnancy and skincare that you can watch right here. If you are struggling with specific skin conditions and want over-the-counter options, such as hyperpigmentation or acne, we also got a lot of videos on those. I'll make sure to link them below. And if you tap the screen or click the little button right here, I've listed all of my favorite retinoids for over-the-counter. Just make sure to check the spelling to see if it's retinol, or retinoic acid ester. And you now know those strengths and what they do because you've watched this video. Do of course stay hydrated both orally and topically. Always remember to reapply that sunscreen. I'd recommend this one because it actually covers redness. This is the All Calm Clinical Redness Corrector. This is great if you have rosacea or retinization that you're trying to protect and take care of. And always remember to be beautiful both inside and out. I love you, and I cannot wait to see you in this next video.